All right, Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good evening, and welcome to the Big Daddy Liberty Show. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. I see there's some comments on screen already. This isn't Liberty and Friends, so the show won't be as interactive as it usually is, because Liberty and Friends is every Sunday, 8 p.m., and that's my long format show. That's where we have a whole 90 minutes to 2 hours to break down the news week that was. But midweek, every Wednesday at 7:30 is the Big Daddy Liberty Show, where you and I get to chat for about 25 minutes, 30 minutes max on what is topical on mind right now. And if you've been reading the news headlines, if you've been talking to fellow South Africans at the moment, if you've been an ordinary citizen right now, experiencing a kind of South Africa that is. Now, let me take a step back, because you might be wondering, what are you talking about? I always refer to Shakespeare when I argue that how I analyze politicians, I really like using Shakespeare. And one of the common themes in Shakespeare's work throughout his, whether it's sonnets, his plays, you go down the line, is the theme or the concept of appearances versus reality, appearances versus reality. And that's perhaps a very good level of analysis if you are going to look at South Africa right now and where we are at the moment. There is the appearance of South Africa as put forward by the mainstream media, the corporate media, the politicians, of course, in this country, whether they are in government or in opposition or in essence sitting in parliament, for example. And of course, the political elites, the chums who are the glue between that terrible trio, if you will, of corporate media, political elites, and again, as I said, the politicians. They've made South Africa, the single purpose of South Africa, to be an exercise of their ability to convince ordinary South Africans, you and me, the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African, that the appearance, which is in their view, everything's okay, we're going through challenges. I know that's an expression you've heard politicians use a lot. If only we had more power to government. If only Cyril, their favorite son of a politician, if only he had more control over X, Y, or Z, everything would look much better than what we're told. Don't trust that faction, trust this faction, we're told. There are numerous things that the ordinary South African is basically told by these elites, the political elites, the politicians, and the corporate media, who, for the sake of not repeating all three all the time, I will call the establishment. The establishment is, bar one or two within them, are full steam ahead in terms of trying to maintain the appearance that a certain basket of ideas, a certain false perception of things, simply because they are the loudest voice in the room, of course, controlling media and political institutions, simply because they're the loudest voice in the room, that appearance is what we must shut off our senses, shut off what we can see, what we can hear, what we can touch, what we can smell, what we can see. And touch. I don't know if I said touch. But they sell you the appearance whilst demanding that you switch off all your senses, which clearly tell you that there is a different reality, or rather that there is a reality, that the appearance that they're selling doesn't match the reality. Now, I'm setting this up. I'm setting this up on purpose because I think it is you, the ordinary faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African, who can feel, who can see, who can taste, who can smell, who can hear, that the everyday reality that you live in this country, not the appearance, the everyday reality that you live in this country is one where there is a darkness that has descended on this country. There is an evil that has descended on this country. There is a gaggle, an elite, an establishment of wicked people who are either on the one hand planning something so as to dribble and distract, to destroy, and to create South Africa in their wicked image. That's on the one level. Or alternatively, if they're not conscious about it, their stupidity is one where they pursue certain ideas, often well-intentioned, let me be fair, but the ideas, even if they're well-intentioned, are bad ideas. And they pursue these ideas because they know no better and perhaps they're quite stupid. Or the last level, they're purely evil. And not only with intent, they have every intent, pardon me. Actually, I began with evil. I began with evil by saying there are wicked people who are pursuing certain ends to shape South Africa in their wicked sense, to satisfy their wickedness, if you will, and their evil. Then I argue that there's a second reason, which is the stupid politician, the stupid individual within the establishment, who's maybe pursuing something not knowing better and maybe well-intentioned, but still pursuing a policy or an idea whose conclusion is terrible for us, the ordinary citizen, and we're already feeling it in terms of the reality that I argue that we operate in and they don't. And the last one, if the first one is evil and the second reason is stupid, then the third the third reason must be they're corrupt. You're either stupid, evil, or corrupt. And the third one, you and I who live in real South Africa, who endure the reality of South Africa, see it every day. The society is collapsing, it's breaking down around us. And at the forefront of who's breaking it down for their own selfish reasons are those who do things with the intention of being corrupt. And now in this instance, I'm not going to point fingers and say, oh, it's just the establishment, they say. No. There are some amongst us, people who you know maybe a colleague, maybe a friend, a relative, who's doing something which you know full well, if you apply your own sense of morality to it, you know is wrong. You know their deeds are corrupt. So that, let me take a step back and revise before we get into some of the clips I've had saved here. And if you see me looking this way, my little monitor's down here. South Africans are in a situation where the establishment is selling us the appearance of South Africa. And that appearance that they're selling us, I've argued they sell for whatever reason. And there's three primary reasons that I argue they do this. It's either they're stupid, and they do this because they know no better. And even as they know no better, they're well-intentioned, but the very nature of the ideas that they push, the very nature of the policies they push are terrible, they're toxic, they kill the faith, flag, family, freedom type individual. Or B, they are evil. They do it because their very nature, their very sense of who they are, and the very South Africa that they're pushing out this appearance of is aimed to be shaped in the image of their own wickedness. And the third one, of course, as I said, is they're corrupt. Their very nature is that they're doing this for the pure sense of extracting as much as they possibly can in a theft-type manner in order to buttress, or rather to feather their nest at the expense of you, the faith, flag, family, and freedom-type individual. That's who we're dealing with here. That is whenever you hear me talk about an us and them, that is the us and them. It's the establishment and us, ordinary South Africans, the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African, regardless of race, gender, etc. Because that's the real divide in this country. It's not the race, it's not the gender politics that we're seeing play out by the woke types, but the real divide in this country and the real growing gap in our society is between the establishment, who are pushing a false reality. If anything, I called it an appearance, versus us, the ordinary South African, that faith, flag, family, freedom type South African, that 4F type South African who's living a reality, and we can see around us that something is seriously amiss and that there is a darkness that has descended on this country. What makes me say this? What makes me say this? Well, I was trolling through social media, and there are some things that we're beginning to see play out on social media. There is a brazenness even that we're beginning to see play out on social media, where the rule of law in this country has all but collapsed. Law enforcement in this country has all but collapsed. Order, the sense of order in this country has all but collapsed. Where South Africa has become a society where it is those within the establishment, including, by the way, that a broad network of a criminal elite in this country, who realize that the fundamental institutions of society that are meant to protect the 4F type South African no longer exist. And if they do exist, they exist in the worst shape possible, so that your life, your freedoms, your liberty, and your property rights are not protected in this country. No one is coming to save you. Those three things that are God-given rights to you are no longer safe in South Africa. Why do I say this? Why do I say this? Let me go into some of these clips. And I want to show you in real terms why I'm saying, guys, you're on your own. And that from here on forward, maybe those of you who've been on the BDL bus from the very beginning, you know where I'm going with this, because it's a time again where forget the creature comforts, forget your middle class existence. Maybe it's time I get into my vehicle again and travel around some of these clips, because I think they'll illuminate that difference between appearances versus reality, how the establishment, the politicians, political elites, and the corporate media live in their own South Africa, a South Africa that they're trying to fashion either their own wicked sense, a South Africa they're trying to fashion or maintain an appearance of because they're corrupt and they benefit from it, or a South Africa in which they destroy unwittingly because they're too stupid to see that their ideas, their toxic basket of ideas, are destroying this country. Let me show you. Here's the first example. Let me show you your politicians, your favorite politicians, and show you how they don't live in our reality. They live in a society, or a South Africa, pardon me, where they're trying to maintain appearances. Here's one, the most famous example perhaps. A one asshat police minister who lost his cool when a South African in this country, a good friend of mine, Ian Cameron, put to him in inescapable terms the reality that is lived by Cape Flats residents, in that case Gugulethu, because it was a crime meeting being held in Gugulethu, which of course Gugulethu is surrounded by Nyanga and other townships. I think Langa is sort of closest to that, and the like. Here's the response. His response had nothing to do with addressing the reality, but rather the appearance. The appearance, of course, being that, oh no, the crime is not the issue. The issue is racism.
Don't provoke me. Don't talk things that you have studied and you have heard, you have been told about. I've lived this life. I've lived the life of being African. I've lived the life when my mother was called a kitchen girl, when my father was called a garden boy. I've lived that life. And I'm not going to take any nonsense of somebody who regards me as a garden boy today, because you regard me as a garden boy. You come here, shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
There it is. That's one example. Someone who's within the establishment, as I characterized them at the beginning, who, when the reality was put to him, decided, no, let me maintain the appearance. In his case, I think he's just a wicked character. He does that for wicked reasons. He knows he's lying. Ian Cameron said nothing about his race, didn't call him a garden boy, which is a historically condescending and even derogatory term, denoting calling grown men, mostly men who are Black African, boys, especially those who work in gardens. But he played on that race card, if you will, to dribble and distract, to disrupt the reality that was forming in that meeting, where people who are listening to Ian, who are residents of those communities, saying, this boy, see what I did there? This man is telling the absolute God truth. The violence, the murder, the rape, the theft, the decay in our society is a reality he's posing to this asshat of a minister who forms part of the establishment. So that was the gap in that hall. The gap was between those who maintain the appearance, the establishment, and those who live the reality, the community members, who Ian spoke for very articulately. Here's another example. I want to show you. These politicians don't live a reality. They live a life of trying to maintain an appearance that is either based for whatever reason on their stupidity or a wickedness or their corrupt nature. Here's a one Panyazi Lusufi, absolute idiot. Him, I will safely say, operates from the position of being stupid. A nefarious kind of stupidity too, where, let me paint a picture here. This guy is elected by his own party members, and I have no issue with this part. He's elected by his own party members to be their chairperson in Gauteng province. In other words, ANC members elected him to address and deal with issues that their party, the ANC, is dealing with in Gauteng, right? He's meant to lead it there. What does he talk about in an interview? Oh, no, racism in the Northern Cape, in a place called Orania, and that's how his focus. Watch this again.
AfriForum and many other organizations that are coming in our country to represent a certain race and a certain language must not be tolerated. For a cramped organization like Freedom Front that represent a certain sector and they want us to tolerate them, and they want to open Orania where you live there on the basis that you speak a certain language, not in our country. Have your own flag, have your own schools, have your own currency in our own country, have a country within a country. It will never happen. If that is wrong and therefore must not be supported because I hate racism, then let it be. Racists are mindless and useless. You must not tolerate them, and I will never tolerate them.
Again, he's trying to create the appearance, to maintain the appearance. An appearance which is not matched by reality. Because here's the reality. AfriForum, Solidarity, Institute of Race Relations, the community of Orania, they couldn't give a flying fudge. They couldn't give a flying fudge about the appearance being created by politicians. Those organizations, those communities, are responding to a reality of their members, in the case of Orania, of their own community folk. They're responding to the reality. They're building resilience, they're building self-sufficiency, they're looking after their own. And here's a politician who, instead of recognizing the work of those organizations and saying, you know what, I see the reality, I see how they're dealing with it. I want to copy them so that we can also grapple with the reality that are shared problems, by the way. That are shared problems. No, he makes no effort to do that, except tries to create the appearance of my racism. All the while, dear South African, you and I can feel this country descend into chaos, can feel the darkness, the evil that is waiting to pounce in this country. Those of us who live that reality can feel it. And we're watching the establishment characters maintain an appearance that does not reflect broader reality. But again, I've given you two examples of your leaders, your establishment. Here's another one. The Minister of Education, basic education in this country. This is a perfect example of appearances clashing with the reality. A perfect example of a minister who tried to sell an appearance and was met with an instant, in her case, reality by the people she was talking to. Watch this.
This government has prioritized education because it knows that it's only through education that we can deal with some of our challenges that are here. Because an educated man won't rape again. Oh, do they? Oh, I thought they need to be a bit civilized, not to do certain things. Now I'm disappointed. But they don't do other things, ne? Oh. So my theory is that the more educated you are, the more sophisticated you are, the less you get involved in wrong things, because you can look after yourself, you can look after your family, you can look after your environment. So for us, it's very, very important that you use every opportunity that these others they have their own children.
You saw that, where she was checked instantly by the people who were listening to her and saying, no, hey man, dear establishment douchebag, what you're saying does not reflect reality. Educated people can rape. And again, I don't want to get bogged in what she was talking about. For me, it was that interaction which was important, where those who live their lives, either because they're corrupt, stupid, or evil, trying to sell you an appearance that does not match reality. In her case, she was checked instantly by the people who live that reality and were like, the hell is this hag talking about? What is this cow talking about? Excuse me, dear minister, maybe you're talking this nonsense. Why? Because you're surrounded by 4, 5, 6, 7 police officers, personal security. But for the rest of us who live in a real South Africa, the reality of South Africa, we can tell you now, that level of crime that you're talking about, so that the picture I'm painting, perhaps, I'm hoping, is absolutely crystal clear. And if you're just joining us, welcome to it. We're nearly about to end the broadcast, but I wanted to paint this picture so that you can see in your own, or pardon me, to see for yourself that you're not going crazy. The reality that you see, no one within the establishment is going to make an effort to reflect. Excuse me, the kombucha came back. And that, no, dear South African, you're not going crazy. What you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're touching, what you're hearing, what your senses are showing you is reality, is facts. South Africa is in a bad shape. And its bad shape is aimed at you. And those doing the aiming are the ones who are selling you the appearance of South Africa being okay, fantastic, or whatever. We'll weather this. Just keep trusting this guy, not that guy. The establishment, the politicians, the political elites, the corporate media who are selling you that false appearance are trying to tell you to ignore what your senses are telling you is the reality in this country. Which brings me to that reality. What are we seeing as South Africans? What is it that we are seeing and clearly able to spot as being reality that the establishment chooses not to see, doesn't want to see, or actively pretends it doesn't exist? Here's my beloved Durban, where we can feel, as I said, that order has collapsed, that we've become lawless, and that really we're on our own. Have a look at this situation and tell me, is this the picture of an orderly society? That, by the way, is a bus merging onto a national highway, N3, if I'm not mistaken, just before the Spaghetti Junction, Ibiklute in Durbs. Chaotic scenes like that. That's what we see as ordinary folk on a day-to-day basis. Signs of a decaying society, signs of a dying country. The very signs that the establishment tell you, no, that's not reality. Rather believe this, our appearance. You tell me what I'm supposed to believe. When you see images like this,
Ya dinehela mona. Ke no tlosa mmasha. Ya dinehela. Bana ba mentina ntse ba ikentse.
Le bidu ka.
A ba tsena ke ba la tshakela ho.
Amparo ho. Ai ko ga tsa mona ngwana.
Ke tsela ka tsena. Ba la tshakela ho.
Ka nna di tla jo bontate. Tara je bona ka mafama ga na tshedi ke ba ishi.
Anyela ha se fela se tse ka tana tsena.
Eh ha ba ka matswanda ka matso ho dimo ka nnete we matlo.
that's reality. In that case, these are these marauding gangsters, these marauding gangs of illegal miners who, again, I chose these two videos. There's so many more I saw this week. The worst of which I think I saw were, I'm assuming, were either gang members or hitmen in what is clearly either Durban or at the very least KZN, because of their dialect of Zulu, who were unloading rifle rounds point blank into what was already someone who either got shot and was in their last seconds of life. At point blank range, unloading rifle shots into that person's head and neck. Murder. All the while, taunting the person who's shooting, whilst his fellow gang members are saying, oh, there's another one over there. Shoot him also, finish him off, they say in that video, as you hear gunfire in the background. All the while, by the way, these people are recording themselves in the commissioning of a murder, a crime. We should tell you everything you need to know about the reality of South Africa, where law enforcement, order, and law and order nowhere to be seen for us, ordinary people. Why? Because we don't live behind a wall of bodyguards. We are on our own. And the reality, the darkness I speak of, reflects that. Who knows? Maybe there is a bullet out there somewhere that has my name on it. Maybe in a hijacking, maybe in an armed robbery, maybe in a home invasion. Who knows? This very video could be me being prophetic about that. Not because I'm special or, there's something I'm feeling, no, but because statistically, that is a high likelihood. We're nearing the end of the day today. Today is the 13th of July. So I'm safe to assume, if the data is anything to go by, that at least 67, or rather on average, 67 other South Africans today didn't see the sun drop. They were murdered, cold blood. That's the reality. That's who, or what rather, those who sell the appearance, the establishment, don't want us to talk about, don't want us to organize around, don't want us to ignore them to create our own institutions to deal with these things. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There is something fundamentally wrong with our society and the manner in which we do things. A criminal in South Africa will enter the house, break in, and basically wait there for the owners to come. And when the owners come, give your money, give your keys, give your gun, etc. Maybe rape your daughter or whatever the case may be. In other countries, a criminal will enter, skulk around, steal, and run away. Which tells you about the nature of our society, broken in its very foundations. And broken by who, you're wondering? The establishment. The very same people now who are telling you to ignore your senses, to ignore the reality, and to believe their appearances. So that as I conclude and I submit, and if you're here, please hit that like button and please share the stream. I'm very worried because I know you can feel it. I know I'm feeling it. There is something looming over this country, something very dark, and something effectively, by its very nature, is there to consume us as the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African. I can feel it, and I know you can feel it too. There is an odd quiet, perhaps before a storm, that is festering in this country. And I'm, what's this twice in English? I'm warning you now that I think you'd be best placed as the various families in your community talking to each other now, building a community-centric approach to build a resilience at a community level, that more of you within your families, if you can, you should apply, get your gun license, train again, keep training, and when you're ready, buy a firearm and carry it on you every day. That's one level. So that you build a network of armed individuals in a community, not because you're building some militia. That's not the point here. Instead, you're building a resilient network, communities of families who are able to protect themselves and, of course, protect their neighbors and protect their community, because that's where we're headed as society. No one is coming to save you. And that now, more than ever, you should be bringing closer to you those in your community who are like-minded, those in your community who are community-orientated, in order to do three things. Help build a sense of unity in your community, a shared sense of goals, an ideal of what you want for the families in this community. Once you do that, once you can rally around ideals, once you can rally around ideas, once you can rally around values, the next step from that unity you fostered is to organize. Oh, what are you good at, Mr. Mazibugo? Well, I'm a doctor and my wife is a lawyer. Oh, okay, great. Mr. Van der Merwe, what are you good at? Well, I'm security and my wife is an accountant. Oh, well, I'm good at farming and my wife is a, I don't know, graphic designer. I don't know. But basically, you begin to organize in the community. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities and your threats? A SWOT analysis, maybe. The point is, you begin to organize the people around you, have a community-centric, family-first. Let me repeat that. A community-centric, family-first approach, where you value your family, yourself as an individual, and your community above the praise and worship of your favorite politicians, who I couldn't give a flying fudge as to who they are. Whether you're ANC, DA, EFF, Anganda. Family first. Your community a close second, where all of your actions as an individual are family and community centric. Strengthen the resilience, strengthen the unity and build the organizing value of each of those individuals, each of those families in your community. Once you're organized, once you know what each of you can do, what resources you can pull together, you then mobilize them. Whether it's to address issues of safety and security, maybe you want to start a community-based stockpile to develop maybe solar panels for each home in the area, whatever. Whatever you guys decide to do, mobilize and do it. Build strong communities, uplift South African families, and by God, protect your places of social interaction, whether it's a church, a mosque, a shul, a temple. Those places, those spaces are going to be critical. It's why when I talk about my 4 values that we defend and advocate for, faith, flag, family, freedom, faith is there. I don't know how else to say this. Build a unity of purpose, organize each other, and then mobilize from there. And maybe, just maybe, our families, our communities will be able to defend ourselves. The faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African will be able to fight back against the darkness that plagues this country. Well, that's it from me. Sorry for it being a bit of a dark one, but yeah, it's important to keep edifying this message. Self-sufficiency, resilience are important to build. Focus on the family, as I said. Get your self-defense right. Get that firearm. Get those solar panels or a generator. Get yourself water, some sort of water, backup water system. Grow some food. Grow some of your own veggies. Keep a few chickens if you want. And again, I'm not saying, oh, you know, there goes Big Daddy Liberty, the prepper. No, it doesn't have to be as, you know, silly as that. Not that I'm saying preppers are silly, but I'm saying the stereotype doesn't have to be a silly one. It just has to be practical. Do practical things. And if more people do practical things, and they do it from a position of pulling in other families, doing it at a community-centric level, building unity, organizing each other, and mobilizing from there, trust you me, we will defeat the darkness. Thank you so much for watching, peeps. That's another episode of the BDL Show. I'm going to see y'all on Sunday for Liberty and Friends, Monday here on the channel. If some people can just get their act together. We're launching a new show, a daily offering here on the BDL Show, and of course something very exciting that we're going to launch. It was meant to be this week, but yeah, it's been a disappointing week, people. Yay! I found my chumash, I found my siddur. Baruch Hashem. Thank you, Lord. So on that happy-ish note, let me remind you, keep watching the BDL Show, like the stream, share the content, and a reminder, as I always say at the end of every show, is for you to never trust a commie.